Howdy home buyers. Tough topic today. We're talking about buyer fatigue. I don't want to sugarcoat it and I never want to lie to you. So we're going to talk about buyer fatigue mistakes that I see very commonly when my buyers have been in a very competitive market, and out of fatigue, out of losing, we start to do things that we wouldn't normally do because we're just ready for this process to be over. I want to call attention to those things and encourage you not to make these very common buyer fatigue mistakes. One of the things I see very often is that we begin to expand our search criteria out of scarcity. So how the real estate market is moving in the United States isn't always the same as how it's moving in Shelby County, isn't always the same as how it's moving in Germantown, isn't always the same as how it's moving in Germantown, north of Poplar, and under $450,000. So a lot of times, due to scarcity, we'll begin to look for something somewhere else just because we want more options, when in reality, we really know what we want. And as you begin to work through a particular micro market, is what I would call it, you become a market expert. You know what to expect in the types of homes that you're seeing, because that buyer fatigue mistake informs another mistake, and that is overpayment. Maybe we've lost out on a property or two and you feel like, well, if everybody's willing to pay, I see that the house is probably worth this. I've seen this price point 4 or 5 times in this area, and I'll just overpay because I'm tired of this process. Don't do that. Hang in there, read the market, decide what you're willing to pay, and if somebody else wants to be foolish and overpay, you gotta let fools be fools. Another thing we'll do is compromise on our standards. All of a sudden, that rotted wood isn't such a big deal, or I didn't want granite counters anyway. And then I go visit that house 3 years later, and guess what? The rotted wood's still there, and those Formica counters are still there. Don't compromise on your standards just because of scarcity. Finally, don't just give up altogether. There's probably a less intense version of your house hunt that you can reach out to your agent, ask them to screen properties for you. They're called agent previews, virtual tours, whatever the case is. Tell them, I'm interested in this property. Would you mind looking at it? Instead of you, the buyer, dropping what you're doing, dreaming about your life in this new home, telling your loan officer to run you a loan update so that you know what today's interest rate is doing to your affordability. And then all of a sudden we get there and the house is a dud. Because that can lead to being buy happy. We're just gonna buy the very next thing that happens to fit us on paper because once again, we're tired of this, we're willing to overpay, and we're gonna compromise on our standards out of fatigue. Hang in there, do it the right way. You'll be glad you did because this is a very temporary thing and you don't wanna have buyer's remorse and have to live in a house that you overpaid for or don't even like all that much for 2 or 3 years before you're able to get out of it financially. Hang in there if y'all have questions. My number is 901-497-5615. Thanks for watching. Be well. Take care.